Hello, my name is Quentin Dixon, and I'll be introducing our digital citizenship project. So first, what's the issue? Two major issues in digital citizenship that we'll be going over today is the digital equity and ethics in P through 12 educational settings and the impact of immersive online teaching on the digital divide. So to break those down, the digital equity and ethics is about ensuring all communities have the technology access applicable for effective training. So in classrooms, laptops, Chromebooks, touch boards, anything like that, that technology that you want in the classroom will help effective teaching. And the impact of immersive online teaching impacted our entire nation during the COVID-19 pandemic. Teachers and school staff had to make adjustments, switching to online learning, and that impacted everybody involved. So parents, teachers, and students. So that's something that we're going to dive into during this presentation. All right, so here's a breakdown of digital equity, the definition by the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. They describe digital equity as the condition in which all individuals and communities have the information capacity needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and economy. So basically, the digital equity, we want to have everybody that's involved with all nations, all geographic regions to be able to have full participation in school during technology activities and things like that. So everything will prepare these students down the line. All right, and here's another graphic we have about the digital divide across all 50 states. As you can see, this graphic breaking it down between the percentages of students without adequate connectivity, as far as Wi-Fi, as far as internet access, and these are all breaking down by geography. You got urban, suburban areas, and rural areas, and you can see those percentages right there. And then if you look toward the bottom of the graph, it also breaks adequate connectivity by race and ethnicity. So as you can see, the percentages right here. All right, so we dive more into the presentation. I want to leave you with two guided questions, and these are quotes. So the first one is technology is not neutral, but people are not. Sorry, let me read that again. Technology is neutral, but people are not. That's by Maya Wiley, the founder and co-director of the Digital Equity Lab, and Greta Byram. She's the co-director of the Digital Equity Labs. They both said that technology has a great potential to drive social benefits democratically or deliver social, economic, and civic devastation for some. We no longer have a digital divide. That's just something to think over real quick. Now, my question about that quote is, how has technology benefited you socially, economically, or any other way? Just something to think about because we want to think about you might have had benefits compared to somebody else you know that maybe lacked the benefits or had more benefits than you when it came to technology and education. All right, so my next quote is going to lead into my next question. This quote says, "The issues of equity are major concerns with online teaching and learning. So, for example, a study showed that the shift to emergency remote teaching did not accurately consider the needs of families, caregiver students, and teachers in marginalized communities with regard to access to reliable internet, computers, and space in which to work." So my question about that is, this is relating to the emergency online teaching and everything. So my question is, what adjustments would you have made if put in the circumstances that millions of students were put in during the pandemic of online learning period? All right, so that's just something about maybe if you was in an online situation and let's say you didn't have internet access throughout the week, what adjustment would you have made? Would you have needed transportation to a local library or things like that? So that's just something to consider that families had to go through during the switch to pandemic teaching. All right, and here's some of the references that I pulled off during this part, and we'll be diving more into these subjects throughout the presentation. Thank you.
All right. Challenges to digital equity in public schools includes access to hardware and internet connections and access to educators who know how to use digital tools and resources. Efforts to provide digital equity in public education creates opportunities. For one, schools are able to implement the use of technology and show students how to use it. It also creates opportunities to provide teachers with the support they need to deliver culturally responsive education for all students. The onset of the COVID-19 pandemic further impacted schools' ability to provide digital equity. Some challenges were it increased the digital divide in already marginalized communities in terms of accessibility to reliable internet beyond the classroom. It also limited access to digital literacy for caregivers, families, learners, and educators. Statistics shown that 32% of U.S. households are subscription vulnerable, meaning they are unable to afford and maintain internet service. Again, with challenges come opportunities. The COVID-19 pandemic created opportunities for increased digital literacy training and professional learning opportunities. Also, for increased public awareness and provisions for ongoing support for low or no cost internet programs. The U.S. Department of Education in 2022 stated, although educators and education leaders have been critical drivers of digital equity, partnerships and cross sector collaborations are imperative to ensure this responsibility does not solely fall on them. We call on leaders from various sectors to collaborate with community members to co create solutions that accelerate progress toward digital equity.
Strategies to resolve digital equity and ethics in P through 12 educational settings. Digital equity, supporting students and families in achieving digital equity in school, at home, and throughout the community.
Across the country, states are raising academic standards for all students to make sure they're ready for college and the workforce when they graduate and can compete with students around the world. High, consistent standards motivate students to succeed, but every child needs something different. Some need help with reading or spelling. Others struggle with fractions. And some are great writers, but struggle with algebra. Every child deserves the best education we can give them, but too many students do not have what they need to succeed. Incredibly, about 40% of school districts in America don't even offer preschool. Almost 1 in 5 African American students and slightly fewer Latino students attend dropout factories. In many states, students of color and English learning students are more likely to attend schools with high percentages of inexperienced teachers. Students with disabilities make up 12% of all high school students, but only 2% of the students who take an AP class. So it's not surprising that there are achievement gaps between white students and students of color, and between students with and without disabilities. But we can change this. We can give every child a fair chance, making sure all schools have the resources they need to help all of their students succeed. And that means providing additional resources for students who are struggling. Let your state and local elected officials know that you support high academic standards and want them to be implemented in a way that ensures every child succeeds. Across the country,
4 steps to bringing digital equity to the classrooms. 1. Seek first to understand. Consider using a survey at the beginning of the year to get a baseline understanding of your students' access to tech. Make sure to let your students know you'll use the results to inform your teaching. Two, try it out. It may seem obvious, but before giving assignments on a new platform or app, try it out for yourself. A lot of times, things we never assumed could go wrong actually do. But trying out the experience beforehand, just as students will, can help us catch some bugs before we turn students loose. And it gives us some valuable insight into what students will experience in our classes. Three, create a tech equity vision with your students. What exactly is a tech equity vision? It's a fancy way to describe the act of involving your students in conversations about how tech use happens in your classroom and beyond. What better way to elevate student voices and partner with students on how to use technology for teaching and learning? Ask questions like, what do we use technology in the classroom for? How do we want technology to help us learn? What are some challenges you face using technology in and out of school? When does technology actually enhance our learning? And when can it get in the way? Four, reconsider homework policies. One student on the panel shared that his teacher had an absolutely no late work policy. And when he couldn't turn in an assignment due to lack of access at home, he simply received a 0 on the assignment. Another student shared that her teacher gave a week between assigning online homework and turning it in, which allowed for more flexibility in finding access to a network. Consistency between classes can really help kids too. So if you're working as part of a team, collaborate with your colleagues on creating consistent policies around homework and digital assignments. Don't be afraid to rethink how your team handles digital learning, and be mindful of the constraints students may face and how they access technology. What strategies were used for the impact of emergency online teaching on the digital divide?
Virtual learning obviously offers a lot of flexibility, and for parents concerned about sending their students back face-to-face to school in the fall, it obviously is a comforting option there. But we're learning that not all virtual classrooms are created equal, and that's because students have different learning needs. That's one of the chief obstacles that both parents and teachers are facing right now.
I cannot see how it's going to work for me.
Angel Marino is talking about online learning. She's been on the front lines as an essential healthcare worker since the pandemic started and relied on school programs for childcare of her 3 kids, 2 of whom have learning challenges. They're in the Detroit Public Schools Community District, which at this point is preparing for a mixture of in-person and online learning for the fall, as are most districts in Metro Detroit. Marino recently picked up free tablets for her kids provided by the district, but aside from childcare needs while she works, she's concerned they won't have the attention they need if taught only online. Marino's son is just in kindergarten.
We're very concerned about our health and our kids, but when the world heals, when the pandemic is over, where are we going to be?
Most younger students do not have the fine motor skills and the ability to navigate independently through the learning tools.
Detroit Schools teacher Tori Anderson is confident in her skills to create an effective online classroom, but says it's going to be difficult for many teachers who were trained to teach face-to-face.
For me, it would be more so getting those social contracts from parents, actually placing phone calls, talking to parents, say, hey, I need your child online this many hours per week.
And if Michigan moves back to phase 3 of reopening, in-person instruction would no longer be allowed.
Eventually, I'm literally going to have to really consider my work.
My biggest concern, number one, is that there won't be options for teachers to either apply to teach virtual school or face-to-face. That decision seems like it'll be made for us.
So Jen, for low-income parents worried about internet connectivity, and many of them are worried about this, what are their options?
Well, Detroit Public Schools Community District is offering free internet along with those wireless tablets for 6 months. And then after that, the district has partnered with the city of Detroit and Human IT. That's a nonprofit to help families apply for subsidized internet. That includes tech help. There's also an online tutorial for parents if they're not super tech savvy and need some help setting up that wireless tablet. There's also a video online. It's also on our website, wxyz.com. So it is important to know there are resources available within the district if that's a concern that you have. Alicia? Virtual learning, obviously.
Teaching strategies during pandemic. If you are a teacher and in future, when your learners tell everyone about your teaching method during a pandemic, then what would you want them to explain your teaching methods during pandemic? In spite of dealing with tough situations, people from the future would judge only on how smartly you have taught your students during a pandemic. In such a case, you would definitely want them to remember you as a teacher who dealt with situations nicely, who cared for students, adjusted as per the needs of students, and helped them in maintaining their calm and some sense of normalcy while everyone was falling apart. Practice makes a man perfect. We all heard that practice makes a man perfect, and in this case, it will make you a teacher perfect. When you choose a teaching job, you were not asked to teach online and you didn't learn how to teach online. Teaching online comes as a shock to many teachers, and all thanks to viruses and the resulting social distancing, which gave birth to the need of teaching online to students. Communication is the key. In online classes, communication between students and teachers is the key to successful classes. You do not need to hesitate about anything. In fact, you should bring an elephant in the room, which means you should talk about the pandemic in the class and try to relax students. It will make students comfortable and refocus on studies. Your availability can make a difference. As explained in the earlier point, communication is the key. So communicate with your students and show your availability to them. They must have a lot of queries about what is going on. So clear those queries. Teachers are continuing taking online classes. Students have a lot of things to ask, such as, how can I cope with depression while trying to get my schoolwork done? What classes will be live and what won't? How are exams going to work during the pandemic? Does our syllabus still apply? What changes in our class? What's due and when? Is there any makeup work I can do to help boost my grade? Teach them the importance of community. A community has to do a lot with teaching online. You can understand it like when you were teaching in the classroom. Your students were learning in a community of their friends. They discuss with each other and share their opinions and ideas to complete the assignment. They study in a community. But with this sudden change, they might be thinking like in isolation. So teach them the importance of community. You can initiate the process by forming a WhatsApp group of your students and encouraging them to exchange phones. By this way, they can sense a community. Making a routine will work. Social distancing is not allowing students to attend their regular classes, and hence they are missing on the regularity and routine. So make sure to have consistency and regularity in your online class schedule as well. Do not stress students. Students are already in stress mode due to online class system. They are not quite really enjoying the new process as they are missing out on their friends, their environment, etc. So you should be easy with them. You should also help them by sharing study material and clearing their doubts. Do not be strict. In fact, be communicative, comforting, and engaging. Be optimistic. We all know time is not ideal, but what the future holds is also unknown. So, it is important to be optimistic and encourage your students to be optimistic. Address the future with positivity. It will help them in their confidence and will boost the student morale. Your main aim is to teach students and they learn from you. So, spread positivity and make your students happy.